Most people are familiar with the images from the start of the outbreak, which started not 3 years ago. Many remember those days as a time of dread, of living in fear of what was once their fellow man. Many people lost good friends and family members as a seemingly unstoppable horde of the undead raged across the globe. And finally, as if by miracle, less than a year into the plague, the famous vaccine was developed by the world-renowned Dr. Hein.
Well, we knew that once the vaccine had been administered, victims of the zombie bites would no longer have to worry about the infection. People could no longer be turned into one of the reanimated. But we still expected that we would have to deal with the ones that have already been turned. We knew there was still a threat, and that they would have to be hunted down and wiped out. What happened next, nobody expected. Nobody.
Recipients of the vaccine were no longer pursued by the turned.
We think that it has something to do with the way they identify each other. The reason you never saw one of them go after their own kind? Whatever their identifier was, we now possess it.
The reconstruction effort was sped along by the incorporation of the now docile turned into the labor force. They could be directed into cleaning and construction crews that would never grow tired, never complain, and would only have to be minimally maintained. After the reconstruction, there was still the question of what to do with the remaining turned.
They were no longer a threat to anyone. Nobody was placed in any danger of being around these creatures. And it was considered too costly to eliminate them all, and nobody thought they would be around much longer. So the decision was passed to leave them alone.
The remaining turned were now allowed to live out their lives, becoming for most people just another part of their daily routine. But then, things started to change. Where the turned had before been mindless, shambling creatures, over time they begun to develop intelligence. One by one, they started to think and to act on their own. Rick here, as he now calls himself, was one of the first to regain his sense of self.
After the first month or so, I started to realize where I was. I think the first time I really questioned anything was when I swatted away at a pigeon that was eating at my sores. Before them, I would just let them go at it. And it wasn't just birds, all the animals came after us. Squirrels, flies, chihuahuas. I remember another one of us getting carried away by a colony of ants. He was too far gone to realize that he was even moving.
He was the test subject, working closely with Dr. Hein to develop the vaccine.
It was a lot of hard work. Many nights were spent in the lab with the subject. It was a very tough time, but ultimately very rewarding. My sister was one of the first to be attacked at the start. This is the only photograph I have left from before. I'm so overjoyed to have her back.
The first thing most of us did when we started waking up was to go and try to look for work. Many of the establishments did not acclimate well to us at all, though. I mean, my friend was refused a counter job at a gas station, even.
One of the industries most notorious for its mistreatment of turned workers is the film industry.
Nate's arms are down. Got another one. I don't know what people are getting so worked up about. These Walking Dead, they want work, and that's what I'm giving to them. Okay. They're not so good when it comes to handling craft services, but they make for terrific extras. They always just stand in the back and do what they're told. Never try to steal any screen time from our big name guys.
If they're such an asset to your company, then why are they paid only a fraction of what normal human actors are paid?
Well, hey! You can't be expecting these guys to make the same money as their living counterparts. I mean, they're dead. Besides, we treat our writers the same way. Frankie! Baby!
The plight of these downtrodden turned has not fallen on deaf ears. There are some that have begun to take a stand.
In my past life, I was actually a lawyer, and although I'm not the same person I was then, I think that I can still use that old knowledge to help my people.
At the moment, Richard is waiting on the decision in what could be the biggest court case for civil rights in the last decade. But before we delve into that, let us take a look at Janine Baker's case. Her father is one of the many people that disapprove of her relationship with a young turned man.
Of course I disapprove. I seen the way that flesh-rotten scum been eyeing my daughter.
Last spring, Janine and her boyfriend attempted to elope, but were denied a license on the ground of him not being a living human.
I was just devastated. I just could not believe that they would turn us away and embarrass us like that. But I knew that I was not going to put up with this kind of treatment. That's why we went straight to Mr. Rick. Oh, he's been such help in these hard times. But you know, as long as I'm with my Shawnee Pie, then I know that everything will be just swell.
Although the majority of the living population is not necessarily opposed to denying equal rights to their fellow turned, there are some groups that are strongly opposed to the idea. We will not tolerate any of these damn zombies being handed out rights and privileges that are reserved for the rest of us that are still be living. We remember what it was like during the outbreak. We know that they can fall right back into that killer rampage at any time. Just look at what happened over in those fellas standing on the side of the road out in California. He is referring to the incident 6 months ago at a farmer's market run by a vegan commune. The residents had refused the vaccines because, as they put it, they were unnatural. All the residents were devoured. None are missed. We know what's needing to be done. We even see any of those damn zombies standing in our streets, we're gonna blow them away. Tragically, this threat was acted upon in the assault on turned individual Stephen Redquist. While shambling home one evening, Mr. Redquist was shot in the back of the head with a 22-gauge shotgun by Harold Carbane. Carbane was apprehended the next day, and miraculously, Mr. Redquist was able to make a full recovery. However, he still bears the scars from that night.
I was pleased when I had heard that he had been taken into custody. I'm extremely grateful for what the police did to capture him, and what they did to gather evidence for the upcoming trial. But then the lawyer started saying it wasn't assault because I'm not technically alive, as he put it, and the judge agreed. It's a strange thing to be told that you're not alive on a technicality. When I heard about the injustice done against Stephen, I knew that this was our chance. This was a case I just had to pursue. Once the Supreme Court recognizes one of us as a living person, then they'll have to start recognizing the rest of us too. Once we've won this case, then maybe, just maybe, we can get somewhere.
At the time of filming and recording these interviews, the 9 judges are still in deliberation behind closed doors, with no hint as to when they could reach a decision. If the court does find that Stephen Redquist is indeed a living individual, it will be a great victory for turned rights. And in the meantime, turned men and women still have little luck obtaining fairly paying jobs and integrating themselves into a society that still has fear of them. Perhaps one day, Richard Dombey's dream of working behind that store counter without sparking a reaction from the patrons will come true.